Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 11 of the Flow Pro Show. I'm Sandy Ucia. I'm coming to you from Northern California this month.
And I'm Daniel Laskowitz, and I am in Utrecht today, the sunny Utrecht. Yeah, always the same, right?
And we're very pleased to welcome our special guest today, Charles Lamanna, who's the Corporate Vice President of Low-Code Application Platform at Microsoft. Welcome, Charles.
Hello, thank you for having me. Excited to be on the Flow Pro Show.
Great. So we've just put this in the form of, we're going to skip our regular normal agenda and just have this be an Ask Me Anything type format, as you requested. So do you want to just start off maybe by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, maybe your career journey, how you came to be involved in the Power Platform and things like that?
Yep, absolutely. It's easiest to talk about yourself, I think. So, but I'd say, so I kind of have a little bit of an interesting career journey. I started at Microsoft right out of university, and I started in 2009. So I'd say in the pits of the Great Recession.
Nice.
Yeah, and the story I say is the team I was going to join was a product called OneCare. I think echo, and then OneCare is interesting because I don't know if folks remember that Microsoft product. It was canceled in 2009. So the story I say is the team I was going to join, not only was a product canceled, but also the team was dissolved. So I had a very interesting onboarding experience to Microsoft those first few months. But I ultimately landed in Office, where I worked for 3 years, worked on creating Office 365 as a lowly dev, cutting away.
Oh, wow.
And basically helped with the Office 365 Exchange Online capabilities. After 3 years, I quit Microsoft, and there's a lot of interesting stories for that. I was having a blast, loved writing code, but just my dream was to really own product vision and direction, and I just didn't think that was possible inside of Office. I mean, like that was set before I was born or something. I don't know, is what I would joke. My boss's boss had been there longer than I was alive at that time. Anyway, but and so I was like, okay, I just can't do this here. So I went and did my own thing. A company called Metrics Hub, where for folks that know Steven Siciliano. So Steven was with me. He was a co-founder at Metrics Hub. He leads Power Automate Flow now. And basically we did that for a bit. It was public cloud cost management and health monitoring. 2012, 2013. We were like one of 2 vendors that supported AWS. We were absolutely the only vendor that supported Azure for doing that stuff, and got acquired back into Microsoft, where I worked for 4 years in Azure, did things like Azure Resource Manager, Azure Logic Apps, Azure API Management, Azure Monitoring, Azure Alerting, Azure Autoscale, so a bunch of stuff like that. I then moved in 2017 to Power Platform and Dynamics, before Power Platform even existed, and I've done that since. So kind of the beginning of Power Apps, beginning of Power Automate, Microsoft Flow, beginning of Power Virtual Agent, AI Builder, as well as the Dynamics 365 platform. So I've kind of gone a winding path through a bunch of different parts of Microsoft. I say I've hit all the 3 major business areas, major cloud business areas for the company. Yeah, so that's been pretty exciting. For Power Platform, that's been without a doubt my most rewarding part of my career. Because we were able, like, it was kind of just a twinkle in our eye 3 years ago. And I remember I was given explicit guidance where Power Platform, the second P had to be lowercase because it wasn't approved to be a brand. So it had to be the Power space lowercase P platform. And I remember like a year and a half ago, we finally got permission to use capital P. So it's Power Platform as a proper noun. That's pretty cool to be able to go really create this thing and across a bunch of different teams.
So that was after the business application platform, right? Because at
Yes.
first it was business application platform, and then it turned when you had the capital P, then you changed, or a little bit before that.
Yes, yeah, because I think like there are internal names and we can external names, and like we're very strict on external names. What can be like a proper noun?
Yeah.
Anyway, so but yeah, but that was that's when I knew we had actually arrived for Power Platform. But anyway, but the exciting thing about Power Platform too is just it's a very disruptive thing. Like people ask me, like I was there, like our startup was there for public cloud in 2012. That's when public cloud, like IaaS and PaaS, was getting disruptive. right now, 2020, this is when low code is getting disruptive. Like the next 5 years, it's gonna completely change how professional developers work, business users work, business analysts work, IT works. That's all gonna be changed pretty fundamentally, just like public cloud did 10 years ago. That's an exciting point to be in time. So anyway, sorry, that was a probably longer answer than you guys wanted.
No, that's awesome.
No,
that's perfect. I think that, yeah, because I didn't know all that. Well, I didn't know you had a dev background to begin with, and then just such a broad experience at Microsoft. And so that really brings a lot, I think, to the Power Platform, which, of course, we all know and love. My background's SharePoint. Yours is too, Daniel, right? I mean, originally. Yeah, kind of. So, but then we've just similarly gotten really excited about Power Platform as soon as it came out. And just because, as you say, it's so disruptive, and it lets normal people be able to to do things that they couldn't do before, which I've always loved. I mean, that's what I loved about SharePoint too, and do still.
Yeah. So how did you actually became interested in the whole low code, no code kind of thing? Because you were a developer, of course. There must have been a story there too. You were in the Azure group, and that's a lot of coding, of course. How did that happen?
You know, it's interesting. It's like I would say Azure Logic Apps was my gateway drug to low code. Because what's really neat is, I don't know if folks know, Azure Logic Apps was actually a hackathon project.
Wow.
And it was the hackathon name was Wolf Crow, which is like workflow backwards. And our sigil was House of Stark, so you can tell we're pretty big nerds.
And when was that?
I don't know, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago or so. So yeah, I don't know if I do that still, but anyway, so I was a hackathon project, and basically we went through a hackathon, and they're like, hey, and basically was a visual designer to build workflows with connectors, and kind of there's like, this is really neat, we should greenlight this. So Wolf Crow became Logic Apps became Flow. A project internally called Sienna, which was a thing in Visual Studio, became Power Apps, and then the rest is kind of history. So it kind of happened gradually, and it's like one of those things where it's like now, like I think oh yeah, we always knew low code was going to be so disruptive, and this was a vision we had that's not how any of it works. It's far more incremental and like fumbling in the dark. But like it kind of, I'd say it all started with Logic Apps. Was kind of that Logic Apps was the first visual design experience inside of Azure, and that's what gave birth to the Power Platform.
And so what message would you have then for pro developers as far as coexisting or working with the low code developers?
I would say two things. If you don't use low code in your like repertoire as a high code or code first developer, you're kind of like developing with one hand behind your back. And that, just like for the same reasons, there are people who, like when C first came out, people were saying people don't use C, that's crazy, you should use assembly. You know, when C++ came out, people said don't use C++, you should use C. So when C# came out, that's the same kind of transformation that always happens. Like low code is just the next layer of that. And like this is kind of something we're big believers in. Like we say low code, not no code, which is a big difference, because I think there are a lot of people or a lot of products coming out now saying, oh, no code, no code. And our conviction is no code is not really viable, because not even Excel is no code. I mean, even you write a formula in Excel. So, and if you're no code, then that's hostile to coders, right? Like you're telling them you're not welcome, which is also not what you want. So low code we think is important. It's a tool for professional developers, IT pros, low coders, and business users. And you can mix and match code inside of it. And this has kind of been an evolution for us. Like at Build, I was very excited this year. At Build 2020, we made a bunch of announcements, and we really kind of had like a Power Platform Hearts professional developers moment, which is great because I saw a good pickup on that. And we really created awareness of it, because that's what our view is. Like it's not hostile. It's not taking away their jobs. It's making them more productive. Just like SQL didn't take away jobs of coders, it created a heck of a lot more coding jobs. C++ and C# didn't take away jobs from coders. It created a whole heck of a more number of jobs. Same thing's going to happen. More opportunity, more creation, more digital experiences.
So would you say that that was kind of one of the biggest takeaways from Build as far as Power Platform is the coming together of professional developers and everybody else in a way?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, that was the big thing we wanted to capture, kind of in Satya's keynote, in Scott Guthrie's keynote, and James Phillips' keynote, and all the sessions that Arun and I did. I think there were like 22 sessions at Build, which is just a humongous number for Power Platform at a conference like Build. And there was all, if you're a coder, you're welcome to Power Platform. You can
I really like that.
Yeah,
I like that message. What would be another key takeaway from, say, MBAS/Build that you have? Like, what would be another big thing that people should pay attention to?
RPA, RPA, RPA.
Okay.
And I think because I mean a few things, like we recently announced in April the Power Automate our UI Flow general availability, and then last week we announced the Soft Motive acquisition, which extends the desktop automation. And I think and like when I say RPA, I'll expose some internal language to frame our thinking. Like we call it little RPA, like little r, like lowercase r, and big RPA, capital R. We say the historical UI automation tools are little RPA. They're very narrow, automating UI stuff. We think the future is big RPA, or maybe RPA 2.0, like something very different. And Flow and Power Automate is there already. It's about API integrations. It's about things like AI Builder. It's about things like completely cloud managed, cloud scalability. We think the whole future of RPA is going towards Flow and Power Automate direction. And I just read a great article, I think in Business Insider yesterday, talking about, hey, there's all this talk about RPA competition, but RPA is in the process of being disrupted right now. It's not going to just, UI automation is an ingredient. It is necessary, but insufficient for RPA 2.0. And that's kind of where, and I think like in the future, we're going to say Power Automate is an RPA tool, and it's going to be able to do all the different types of automation that you need, API, AI, UI, other stuff I'm sure we'll dream up in the future. And that's kind of the center of our strategy.
Cool. I know Daniel's done a good bit of work already with the Win automation. He's put out a bunch of videos.
I dove right in.
Yes, thank you. It's
So I struggle a little bit with the RPA side of things because I have been talking to customers like for a very long time that they should focus on business process automation, or I think Stephen also called it DPA, digital process automation or something. But I struggled with that because a lot of people at my customers, they see RPA as a whole thing, like you are just describing, like it's more than just UI automation. It's also the API automation and those kinds of things. So I struggle a little bit with the messaging because it makes it also a little bit hard to understand then what's what. But yeah, I like the idea of it's maturing or something. It's not just UI automation, but it's a lot more than that. I believe that's the big end goal. It should be like that. I have another question about Power Automate, of course. It's hard to choose, but what's your favorite Power Automate feature and why?
Let's see. I honestly would say like my favorite thing is I really love the debug. Like this is gonna be super. You can tell I'm a dev. I love the debug view of Power Automate. It's just like, I mean, it's like the ultimate time travel debugger. I can see every run. I can see it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. You can see every input and output of every step taken by every run for your automate, which makes it super easy to debug errors as well as like logical errors where it ran successfully, but it didn't do what you expected it to do. Like as a programmer, I wish I could go look at every HTTP request and see all this, like have a variable, like a watch on all the variables every time. You have that for every single automate. And it's kind of one of those things which is like, we're the only one that actually does that. Like if you go to, nobody else does that for all the runs, all the history, all the inputs and outputs. But it's like, it was born that way because we thought it would be cool. And like, it's just one of my favorite features by far. And something I'm super excited about, kind of, because I don't know if other folks thought, we've like really grown the Power Automate team. So you guys, so whenever like the team says, oh, well, the backlog or in the fullness of time, that should be much smaller periods of time and much faster backlog, because we've grown Automate like 4x
wow.
number of developers over the last couple of months, and with folks coming on in the next month. So the team has grown a whole bunch. We're finally going to be able to update, because I love the debug view, but I don't love the run history view. Like, that view of all the run history. I wish there were more filters to be like, can you give me all the ones where this step failed? We have all that data and it's all indexed, but we just don't give a UI. So I'm super excited to kind of the increased investment and improvements we're going to have for debugging. And you can see it for like the UI flow automation. Like there's even the GIF. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that. If the UI automation fails, there's a GIF. That's how cool. Like, I don't know. Like,
that is.
I look for, like that's just like debugging is very first class. I think there's a ton more stuff we're going to do.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions that's here, you can feel free to ask in the chat. And are there any kind of features besides that one, I guess, that's on your wish list for Power Automate?
Yep. Let's see. The other thing is I want folders, or I think this is like the #1 vote. But or tagging or something, because like when you have a ton of, because it's like I actually use Power Automate to run a whole bunch of stuff, because my team always will ask me, like, how are you so on top of that stuff? And it's like, I work smart, not harder. I have flows that do it. So like I have flows that like listen to like different DL, like distribution groups and distribution lists, and like for example, we have like a way to listen to all outage events that we publish. So I actually have flows which like roll up all the outage information, and I can send a mail. Like I know, hey, this was an outage I want to go deeper on, so I want to go ask the team about. So that way I can like always be listening, but not actually monitor it. There's all kinds of cool stuff I do with Automate. But when you have a lot of flows, it's like very painful to manage the list and find the one you want. And I always don't like to delete them. I disable them, and then you end up with more. So anyway, I think there's a lot we could do for that. Basically, we got to grow for the scale of number of flows. Yeah.
Or is the team sort of surprised at how much this has taken off in the past, say, year?
Yep.
Seems like it's grown hugely just within the last year, especially.
Yeah, for sure. I think like the team is definitely, I wouldn't say surprised, like happily surprised. But like when you grow like that, there's a lot of weight that comes, because it's like basically that means more support tickets, more customer questions, bigger community. But like the stat I like to show is, of all the Power Platform, Power Automate is has the lowest barrier to entry from like a technical proficiency point of view. And we see that Power Automate has the most makers, we call them, like developers on it, of any Power Platform product. More in Power BI, more in Power Apps, more in Power Virtual Agent. Of course, it's brand new, but it's because the barrier is so low, and it's really grown at a pretty phenomenal rate. And I think what we're very excited about is like, how does that growth continue to different segments? Because I think we've done a good job with personal productivity and team productivity. How do we go get enterprise-wide productivity? And that's why RPA has become a big component of it, because enterprise-wide automation or process automation is just like littered with like super old, crusty applications, which haven't been touched in 25 years and definitely don't have an API. So for those, you need to have the UI drivers.
And I like what I think maybe Stephen, or probably you also have said in various sessions in Embass and Build about that feature not allowing you to not have to rip out what you've got, but be able to go with what you've got and then add on to it.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay, we got our first question from Jeroen Stutterheim. He asks, if you look at the AI part of RPA, how good is it going to get? Will it be the future first enabler for system integrators, or is it only for those old local legacy applications?
Yep. Yeah, so I think their AI is going to appear in a few different places. I'll talk about two boring, I call them like steak and potato ones, and then one exciting like dessert one. The first is like AI to help just like drive the application, to understand the legacy UI. And that's just like computer vision, but like more than computer vision, because if you only use pure vision, you're actually leaving a lot of data on the table, like the UI tree and the accessibility APIs. So I would say it's computer vision plus plus. with I'd say like really deep learning type capabilities to understand exactly what's going on in the app. And that's important to make it resilient over time. So that's kind of like table stakes. There's a bunch of work we're doing there with the Windows team, as well as other pretty cool projects inside Microsoft. The second one is like what AI Builder does today. And we talk about AI Builder bridges like the opaque data into structured data. And what we mean by that is, say you have a PDF or an image or just a big blob of text. How do you understand the structure of that? What is the text talking about? What is the fields in the form in the PDF? What is the object in the image? So AI Builder will keep doing all of those things. And that's actually a bunch of different parts of AI. Like that's actually a lot of different models. That's natural language understanding. That's computer vision again. Another one, like the form itself and a custom model. Like, so there's lots of different models we have to create, but that's all about stuff that you normally can't, like you need to have a human read and provide structure to. Can a machine read it and provide structure to it? And like this one is like I'd say the number one way businesses communicate today is emails with PDFs attached. That's the number one B2B communication forum. And we work with customers who have thousands, literally thousands of humans who receive those emails. That's their only job every day, and go enter it into other systems. So it's like, how can you use AI to make those jobs more efficient and to make that job more enjoyable, have them do higher order stuff like deliver customer service as opposed to just like data entry. So those are, I'd say, the two big steak and potato ones. Then the third one is the exciting one. I don't know, hopefully Stephen won't get mad about me spilling the beans. I think we're going to get to a point where it will be possible for us, and this is this is an extension of a field called process mining, but where we'll be able to actually watch in a compliant, private way, but like monitor what people are doing in a similar role, and then automatically generate bots or automatically generate 80% of the bots to help them improve their job. And I'll give an example. Say you have a call center with 2,000 people. All they do every day, answer phone calls from customers and help them troubleshoot issues, entering into in a few different systems, probably to look up billing information, do actions. What if you could sample what those 2,000, 1,000 call center employees are doing and identify opportunities for automation? Hey, these 17 clicks are run over and over again every day. This click sequence across apps happens 1,000 times. What if you built an attended bot which would allow you to save 8 hours of working time per day, or probably it'd actually be more, 100 hours per day of working hours. And we can actually identify that, isolate it, and propose the bot. And this will change the way of how a lot of bot authoring works. Because today, if I want to build a bot to make myself more efficient, of course I know what I need. Say you're a call center or a finance department or even an engineering team, how do you centrally identify repeatable tasks that could help everybody be more productive? That's hard. That's when you have like business process studies, like documentation, like all that ugly stuff which costs like millions and millions and millions of dollars. What if you could just do this by using sampling in AI, deep learning, computer vision, transfer learning stuff to actually identify what's the repeatable automation for that group? And that, I think, is actually not going to be just about building bots. It's also going to help you build apps, like Power Apps, and building Power virtual agents and dashboards. It'll help you build all of those things. So basically, a bot. You think of it like, I honestly, like a mega Clippy, but maybe, but like someone you can go to and say, "Help me improve the efficiency of my department. How do I do it?" And it will say, "Hey, we think you could build these 3 apps to cover these experiences. Build these 20 bots, and we think it will save you 5,000 hours a year. Do you want to do it?" And then help you guide you to do it. Yeah.
That
so
is
we
awesome.
already have the name Power Clippy.
Yeah, they don't let me name stuff. Wolf Pro, Power Clippy.
So sad. Oh, I like Power Clippy.
That sounds really awesome. And I mean, none of that would have been available without all of that data being already cloud-based and everything. So that's very cool.
Yeah,
like the process mining, right? So you also have a partnership, I believe, with Fortress IQ, who does a little bit like that. But that's probably a little part of it. But your vision is like way more than only that small part, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, and I think like a lot of process mining today is very focused on understanding the business process in the apps. So like, for example, you go and you actually extract data from SAP and like you look at what people are doing, or extract data from Dynamics and look at what they're doing. We think there's going to be a really interesting opportunity, and we're doing it with good partnerships and stuff of like how, if you start to think about it differently, think about it more from like the computer vision plus, you actually don't need to have adapters for all those apps to understand the business process. You can literally just use what a human does and sees. So I think that's just a very different way of thinking. And like kind of the way I talk about it with my team is like, that's like the self-driving car, right? Like everybody wants a self-driving car. That's a really hard problem. But you don't go straight to self-driving car. Like step one is build a car, right? So we're building the car right now. So we're building all the automation options with UI and API and AI. Then step two is like AI assisted cars. So like this is the automatic, this is like lane assist, the self-braking, things like that. That's what we're starting to get to today with partnerships like Fortress IQ. Like how do you go help assist you with AI, but it doesn't do everything for you. Our nirvana is you want to get as close to self-driving as possible, where it says, hey, here's the 17 bots to build, just tweak some of it, because you actually understand the business logic behind it, as opposed to today where you have to imagine all the automations up front.
Okay, we got another question from Mr. De Silva. Are they going to have more connectors with Microsoft Teams? Is one of the questions.
So I think probably meaning more actions, more triggers.
More actions, more triggers, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like we're really like Teams is top of mind for us because there's like a broader change we're talking about, which is like the future of remote work. And I've talked about this with my team a lot over the last 2.5 months, which is everything we thought we were going to do over the next year, we should throw it away and replan because the world like so completely changed. And a big part of that is remote work. Like basically people are going to be like, right now we're living inside of Teams, right? I literally spend an unhealthy amount of my day just looking at Teams. How do we go bring value in that environment? So we're doing a bunch of integrations with the Power Platform and Teams, which is not only about more connectors, so more actions, more triggers, and there's a bunch of people working on addressing gaps there right now. But also it's about how do you go build more native integration points inside of Teams. So there's some cool things where like in ... dots on messages, you'll be able to go trigger flows or even build flows. Like we're doing integration like that. So it'll be much closer together and more closely integrated. And we're doing that because we're just responding to how the world is just completely shifted. To video conferencing is the future. I mean, like build is digital and virtual. Like we do our sessions over Teams. I think you guys see it on the web, but I literally join a Teams meeting to give those presentations. So we're definitely going to add more functionality and more integration for Teams.
And you can see it already, of course, because of, if you look at Power Apps, for instance, they already have the Teams context object, for instance, in there.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of flow stuff happening there as well. So yeah, I really like that because Teams is really the center of teamwork, of course. So or the teamwork hub.
Yep.
And I'm glad I'm not the only one who calls that the ... menu.
Yeah. Yeah, it needs a cooler name like hamburger, like the hamburger.
Yeah, we had a lot, by the way. Hamburger, waffle.
Yeah.
A lot of those things.
Yeah, well, I don't know what food it looks like.
Yeah. Line.
Yeah.
Hamburger.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Another question. Yeah, can you speak to the future of approval-based flows and how you're seeing that morphing into easier management?
Yeah. So like one of the big parts of any workflow or any business process is like the human like involvement. And what's interesting is I would say like the most consistent business process in the world for every company is approvals. Like I think the business process I participate in the most by far is approvals. I do like 15 a day or something. And so approvals are going to continue to evolve, and it's a big focus for us. And one of the things we're doing is we're increasingly trying to like frame it, up level approvals even higher, because today approval still is like a thing in flow. how can we go make it so people just think about approvals and they don't maybe know or care that it's flow that creates them behind the scenes. So we're doing more work where, as the consumer of approvals or people looking at all your pending approvals for a process, that's more of a first-class application-like experience as opposed to a feature of flow. It doesn't mean we're going to create power approvals or something, but it does mean we're going to start to expose approvals directly, like in Teams and other surface areas, without necessarily going through flow. And just that's because like you want to use flow to drive the approvals, but I don't to actually approve or reject or leave comments or reassign. I don't want to think about flow in that context. And as part of that, we're going to go extend the management quite a bit as a person creating the approvals, as well as for the approvals pending for you.
Okay. Yeah, because things like canceling and all the little intricacies that approvals can get into are pretty intricate to do right now.
Yes. Yeah, I think like I would just say like we have to add more options because I would say our approvals are still very like nascent. Like we don't have the more sophisticated concepts, and like if you think about like if I approve purchase orders from Microsoft, there's a fairly complex business process, which probably costs us like at least $1 million to implement, just the process, with code back in the day. But like ideally, even those complex, sophisticated approval workflows could be supported fully out of the box in a low code experience and automate flow for sure. I mean, we have a team that focuses on approvals, so it gets a lot of love.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is, I love the idea of the mobile experience with the mobile app, but it seems overkill for the average process consumer. Are there any plans to change that in the future?
Yep. Yeah. I think like there's, like I think we have to think about a true consumption experience for Flow, because today for Flow, consumption and authoring really are like left and right, which is very different from the rest of the Power Platform. Like if you think about Power BI, the experience for people who build a report in desktop, Power BI desktop, super different experience, different location, everything than the people who consume Power BI dashboards and reports. Similarly for Power Apps, like the vast majority, like 90% of Power Apps users never, ever, ever go to the Power Apps Maker experience. And I don't even mean like the studio. I mean, they don't even go to make.powerapps.com. They go directly to URLs and links to Power Apps. So it's a pure consumption experience, and they don't even care that it was built by Power Apps. For Automate and Flow, we don't do that. Like in the mobile app, I can trigger button flows, but I can also like build flows. I can create flows with templates. I even get the full designer. I even get the debug view. So like the current Flow app is closer to like the Flow management app or the Flow maker app, as opposed to a true Flow consumer app. I don't think we're going to go, like in the next 6 months, we're not going to go spin that out. But if you go look at the long-term vision, I do think we'll end up with a Power Apps management app in addition to our Power Apps consumption app. And we'll end up with a new Flow consumption app in addition to our existing Flow management app. It's like the inverse between those two. So I think that is inevitable. Not in the next 6 months, just given because we're really focused on that RPA 2.0 and kind of like going and smoothing out some of the scale for enterprise workflows. But I think that's what will happen for sure. Because I think those are two different users, two different personas, two different use cases.
Yeah,
as long as people can still edit their flows in the mobile app, because otherwise John Liu is gonna cry.
Because he's always doing this on the train.
That's hilarious. But like, because that was a big debate. It's like, do we really need to make the Flow designer responsive to work on a phone? But and I'd say he has a certain endurance. If he has like a very complex flow with like many nested conditionals, that is not easy to do on a mobile. But I mean, like, and it's not like it'll go away. It's just we're gonna like over time it would just split. Like if I want to just run button flows and do approvals, I don't need to have like that should be a different app
or get notified.
Yeah. So and we have to figure out how we name that stuff, and like I think that's because we also don't want consumers to like discover the management app by accident. So anyway, but I think it's something that'll be across the board, because like even Azure has a mobile app, and the Azure mobile app, that's about managing Azure, not consumption, right? So I think we'll have a mobile app which does pretty sophisticated stuff forever.
Good. Heard it here first, folks.
Yep.
I see another question from Jeroen. Are you planning on adding SOAP support for custom connectors? And that's one, I believe it's already in Logic Apps.
Yep.
And yeah, it's probably coming to Flow sometime, but I'm not sure.
Yep. Yeah. I think there's we have a SOAP to rest and a SOAP action. I would say it will come. It is a good question, actually, because I know originally we didn't want to go after it because we were very focused on like the personal and team productivity, where like in the very low code end of it, where like SOAP is kind of like, oh my God, I don't want to use that, even scarier than RPA. But I think if we go towards that enterprise automation, I think this is going to be important. So I'd say certainly it'll be on the roadmap. I don't think it's like in the next 3 months, but I'm going to poke on that based on this question. Because it should be relatively simple to go bring through, because it's just, I mean, Automate just runs on Logic Apps behind the scenes. So,
would you say, is there really anything in Logic Apps that wouldn't eventually come to Power Automate?
So I think there'd be maybe 2 or 3 things. The first would be like EDI. So a lot of Logic Apps usage is like Edifact, X12, like the business to business transactional communication from BizTalk. I don't think that like that pure integration stuff, B2B integration, doesn't really align with our automation mission. So that's one. Second is Logic Apps is increasingly adding like IoT stuff. Like, and to do that, like they're making, or I don't want to spoil, they're doing some cool stuff. I can spoil my roadmap and feel bad spoiling the roadmap, but they're doing some cool stuff for IoT, where like it's about like devices and edge and stuff, and like that probably doesn't make a lot of sense for us to do for Automate. Just maybe like in some super long period of time, but doesn't quite align with the mission of automation. I'd say probably the third thing would be when you look at some of like the deeper Azure integration, like ARM templates and stuff. Like we'll never bring that because just we're inherently outside of Azure. But like, for example, I'm pushing, and I'm going to go poke on it because I just was reminded of it, is code view inside of Power Automate. Like, Logic Apps has a code view, and apparently for basically like all of our largest Logic Apps customers, they almost exclusively author it in the code view, because when it gets really complex, you want to change one thing, you don't want to open up the whole designer. So I'm actually taking a note right now.
Cool.
Okay. Another question we had. What do you think people should immediately try when they start working with Power Automate?
I would say if you want to get like your feet wet and see the value, I would just actually focus on automation around your email. Because I don't know, like if but Microsoft is an extreme email-oriented culture. And like, I think we're trying to move increasingly to Teams, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in Teams, but I still get an unholy amount of email every day. And what I was able to do with Power Automate to improve my productivity was pretty amazing. And because you can get much more sophistication than what you could do in an Outlook rule, and you can even take actions and do approvals and stuff. Like back when I used to do like really large scale hiring, I actually had a whole Power Automate flow that triggered off of emails I got from the Microsoft Careers website. And I had like an approval flow. If I approved, it would like trigger an informational meeting, and I could approve for different teams and do the right intro. So it's like every morning I'd wake up and I could just go through really quickly like 10 resumes and like run through this process on my phone. Like that was a huge lifesaver. It always saved me like an hour a day. I think dramatically improved our hiring rate. Like, go find personal automation around email, because it can be all API based if you're in Office 365, and you can just see the power really quickly. That's where I would say to start. And Outlook and Office or Exchange is the #1 connector for Power Automate for a reason, by usage. So I'd say just give that a try. Would definitely what I'd recommend.
Okay, that's good. Oh yeah, that's a good question that Tristan has. I should have asked that too, because that's something I've wished for. Is will there be a way to document your entire flow, or print to PDF in some way, or some way to do documentation?
Yeah, because I think like historically we've adopted the approach of I would say the flow is the documentation, but I think increasingly there's a need to have other things. So like, I know we've talked about this, and we actually experimented with it where you could print what's in the designer as a PDF. Like, would that be sufficient out of curiosity?
Not from my perspective. So what I've tried to do is I tried to write a flow to do flow documentation that would take like all of the different options from the actions, because that's what, like, if I'm documenting a flow that I've written for somebody and they're not the maker, so they can't go to the flow designer and take a look at it. They just need that documentation. Like, what's this flow doing? What are all the option configurations that were set in each action and the expressions and everything, so that if they need to go back and revisit it or fix something, they know where to go.
So I just did an intro this morning to all the virtual interns at Microsoft. We have like 200 of them or something joining the business application group for the next 3 months. This is an awesome intern project. Read the flow and generate like a human, more visual, readable description. That's also printable. So
I actually would love to see the whole end-to-end scenario. So maybe at the beginning, you're starting from Visio or something. You start designing your process. And then maybe also some non-technical people can kind of join in and see if it makes sense. And then maybe you want to co-author, you want to have a process owner who is in charge of all the of all the changes, for instance. So, for instance, me and Sandy work together on a project, and Sandy is the owner of the flow that has to become a flow, of course. But then I can propose some changes, and then she can approve or reject those. So you can put approvals in there as well. Hey. And then you can maybe export it to Flow like it already works with Visio. And then after that, you can also document them. So I think that whole end-to-end process kind of, it could be the sweet spot for Power Automate.
Yeah, I mean, I just want like a button or a link I can click and it creates a document for me. And then it could create a Delta document if something changed.
So I think diffing is something that we are at, because diffing is one of those things where there's a bunch of work that has to happen behind the scenes, because like we have to make like a stable representation, which it's not like, you can change the order of stuff in a flow and it's not, it doesn't actually change what it's doing. So we are working on like basically making it be diffable. But I think I'm going to take the easiest request, which is just printing the flow. But I think Daniel, like your example of like, what's that whole end-to-end process of ideation to brainstorming, defining, to building, to creating a flow, to service, maintaining. Like we do want to make that end-to-end first class. And right now, a lot of our focus is, and I know like my team hates when I say this, but I say like a lot of our focus is about making things possible, not always great, which just sounds bad. But I mean, like, because a lot of the gaps is there's things you can't do in the platform. And like we have that mantra of no cliffs. You want to remove the cliffs from low code, because that's the thing that kills it, where you fall off the cliff when it gets too sophisticated. So we're all about like building bridges over all the cliffs we can right now. But I think as we go build out that suite, which is, I don't think, a super long time away, the way we're going to pivot really hard is to let's run an end-to-end real human-centered process that our customers are doing and make that amazing. And that won't be like through all kinds of like, here's this amazing AI model or UI automation. It'll be much more subtle of a feature. But we do want to get to that point. Because like we're even starting to think about like the thing of, if you're a person and your job is to monitor 1,000 bots, like 1,000 flows, how do you do that? Like today, it's not fun because you have to go in 1,000 bot, like it's just horrible. So we're saying, okay, there's these new types of business processes and even roles that are being created. How do we go create the experiences for them? Same is going to be true from the authoring side. So I say like, we'll get there. Right now, we're really focused on building out the breadth of the platform, but we're increasingly going to the model of choose an end-to-end workflow, like a human workflow, not the automation workflow, end-to-end human process, and go really optimize that with lots of little features.
That sounds great. I think it really helps too that you and Microsoft in general are really open about what are your thought processes behind things and where things are going, and so people then can appreciate. Okay, we'll add this incrementally, but it'll get there eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like that's very different in terms of how we try to operate, and I think we've been very fortunate that we've been able to do it, which is we don't work in like the darkness for 5 years and then give you a product. Like right, we ship super quick. Like AI Builder team was formed to GA in like 8 months for V1. And I mean, and that was a V1 for sure. That was an MVP. But like just improvements are coming every month. And that's a much more cloud modern perspective on it. And that's the best way to get feedback from folks like you to give us on, are we building the right thing? Are we heading in the right direction? So instead of spending 5 years, we give it and you go, this is not at all what I wanted. You can tell us by the week or by the month if we're on track. It's just a much more efficient way to build software. But it has to have the right community, the right folks that support it to kind of get that. That's an incremental process.
And then, so that brings me actually to another question I had is what do you think about the Power Platform community, or how involved are you in the community aspect of things?
Yeah, like I said, community is probably when I talk about like this is the most excited I've been about any role or any team I've worked on. The community is a big contributor to that because the community makes it be a lot more than just my thesis and my theory and my white papers or whatever about the future of low code. I mean, the fact that there's over 1 million monthly active community members is astonishing in our digital community. And these are people like a bunch of them aren't being paid, but they go there, they share idea. Like this is what a movement looks like. This is what disruption and sea change looks like for technology. And that community is now one of the biggest assets. Like I just recorded a video with Microsoft Mechanics last week, which I think will go live in a week or two. And in it, they basically asked at the end, what are the 2 things for someone new to Power Platform I'd recommend they do? I said, go sign up for a trial because you can do it for free in less than 5 seconds. And the second thing was go to our community website. You'll never meet a better group to help you ramp up quickly and to answer your questions and to basically help make you be successful. And so it's an incredibly healthy community. Like it's very constructive, really great personalities there. It's just massive and grows like at a pretty amazing rate. So I think it's one of the coolest things about what Power Platform has done, for sure.
I would agree. I think we probably ought to go ahead and wrap up. So if you have any parting words.
I have a question for Charles. And,
feature request or a question?
No, a question, and you're gonna like it actually, I think. Yeah, we have a couple of people here, and of course we have asked a lot of questions to you, but maybe you want to ask a question in return. So if you want to know something about the people that are in the call right now, so maybe you want to know something about how they like a feature, or if something else, I think it's fair to at least ask something back to us as well, because it's a one-way street so far.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like the question I would ask is if folks have any suggestions on how we can bring RPA and UI automation into Flow and Power Automate without compromising on the low code cloud first concept of Power Automate. And I think this is really important because like we believe that there's a direction the market's heading and our customers want us to go. RPA is pretty opposite generally of that, right? It's on premise, it's legacy clunky. There are a lot of gatekeepers, like it's not democratized. So we're saying this is an important technology that we want to go bring to our worldview. And so I say recommendations, how we go bring RPA into the fold, because I want Power Automate to be RPA 2.0. I don't want Power Automate to become RPA 1.0. That's a really important thing for us. So.
Okay, really cool.
Yep.
So that was my last question.
Okay, so this recording will be up on our YouTube channel, and people can respond to that question in the comments there if they don't. More people will watch that than are here currently, but Yeah. We have another question in the chat.
The last
Yeah,
one.
if there be any changes on the send on behalf of permissions for flow. Yeah, are you able to see that question?
Yep.
Yeah, so we've built about 20 flows in our company to automate different simple approvals, and all those emails get sent to, my email, sent from my or my colleague's email account on behalf of the shared mailbox.
Yeah,
I believe that's a difficult question.
Yeah, I'd say I'm gonna redirect that to Steve. No, so I think there's two layers to it, because like the first thing is we actually, like, the connectors and connections allow us to solve these problems frequently. But a challenge we have is, how do we also do this in a secure way? Because, like, we don't want, like, you shouldn't be able to send an email on behalf of anyone and under any circumstance in your company. Like, I don't care what your permissions are, unless you're an Exchange admin. So that's something we want to protect very carefully. But, like, for example, if I build a Power App, and from the Power App it sends an email, if I share that with Daniel and he clicks a button to send the email, it will send the email as him, because Power Apps will collect his Outlook connection and use it to send the email. So there's a consent experience where he actually sees a consent dialogue, or what the app does, things like that. So could we build a similar experience over the approvals? I think so, but we have to make sure that things like the Teams integration or the Outlook adaptive cards would still work, because those won't create a connection for us. So I'd say aspirationally, yes, but it most likely would limit the features and places you could have the approval show up. But it's something that we do today through Power Apps. And because approvals are stored in CDS, you could also build your own dedicated experience for the approval if you want, which you have customers that do that. And when they click the button there, you use the Power Apps connection framework to go send the mail. So there are a few options to do it today, some options to extend it in the future, but it will come with caveats. And the team can definitely, if you shoot me a mail, Marcel, or if you need more information, I can also help connect through to the team and talk about those options in more detail.
Great.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been great. Yeah, I think everybody probably got a lot out of that, and we really appreciate your time so much.
Awesome. Thank you again. Have a good one. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.